Welcome to the second installment of Perspectives on Stewardship in a Digital World, a partnership between iGiveCatholic and CCS Fundraising. I'm joined today again by Cory Howat, Executive Director of the Catholic Community Foundation for the Archdiocese of New Orleans, and founding board member and president of iGiveCatholic. And we are happy to be joined today by Amy Ponson, Executive Director of the Catholic Foundation of South Louisiana of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us, Brad.
Absolutely.
This series is talking about the giving days and our new reality of stewardship in a digital world. And as we get started with that conversation, Amy, my first question for you would be, we talked in our first session about in 2019, there was approximately, say, 20% of parishes that were engaged with meaningful and robust digital community with their donors. And I wonder if you, number one, had to experience that, and then through 2020 and maintaining in 2021, an increase to say 40 or 50 or 60%, both in parishes and schools.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on with the number of participants. We've been doing this for 5 years now, and it takes a little while to gain momentum. So for dioceses that are thinking about doing this, it does take a couple of years to just gain momentum and for people to wrap their head around what the platform is and how to engage with it. But in 2019, we were operating in a normal experience of the church, right? So we have our captive audience on Sunday, our normal galas at schools, and then 2020 happened and everything went out the window. So it kind of forced our diocese and our parishes and our schools to embrace technology in a very unique way, which is why we saw participation increase. And when I say participation, not just, okay, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to have a page. I'm talking active participation, actively sharing their story, finding a reason why we want to engage our community. And they needed to, quite frankly. Parishes no longer had the entire church filled with their pews. So they didn't have a captive audience anymore. So their operational expenses were suffering. And honestly, our schools, that is where we saw the biggest growth in our diocese, because our schools no longer could have the gala. They can't have that fundraiser, that festival they usually do, which drives a lot of participation and funds coming through the door. So they had to embrace technology in a very creative way. And quite frankly, when we have 11 schools in our diocese, we are a mission diocese, and I think 6 of our schools were in our top 10. Participants this year. So I was thrilled to see that active engagement from their part.
What kind of partnership did you have with parishes and schools as they learn these new technologies?
So I hold their hand the entire way. I provide, with all the resources that iGiveCatholic provides, I kind of go in a little bit more depth for our diocese. I handhold them the entire way from training them. I did virtual trainings specifically for schools this year, then specifically for parishes. And then I did some just for Catholic charities. So it was very targeted trainings because they're different demographics. They're different communities of people. Schools, we're talking mostly families, grandparents, and alum, whereas parishes are typically engaging our older generation that are actively going to churches. That's just the shift of the Catholic Church. But now with this platform, how do we engage the younger generation in parishes with this technology? So how do they market to that demographic? The way we communicate to the 65, 70-year-old is different than how we communicate to the 35, 40-year-olds. So we had to work with the pastors and their staffs to craft a message and how you could reach them, and how do you clearly articulate what your story is. If you clearly articulate what your story is and you have an exciting, project, and honestly, if the caller leaves with excitement and positivity, they will be a success any day. I watched 2 years ago, and I think Cory will probably giggle at me, a parish priest make renovating a sewage system exciting. And he raised $75,000 in 24 hours to replace his entire sewage system. So if he can make a sewage system exciting, then you can do anything.
And Amy, that's a real testament to you. And I think that's the beauty of what you bring to the table. Obviously, you're very talented as a development professional, but kind of seeing the very depth of, the depth of the success and how it takes kind of that hand holding. But then once they taste success, they really take off. And really, speaking of success, I think one of the pieces I'd love for you, especially those that are tuning in to be able to listen, is for you to share some of your own experience, background. I mean, what you did to be able to get to the next level is quite stunning, from a development perspective, but also in the middle of pandemic. Here you are at around 461,000 in 2019. You're pushing it, beyond 900,000 this past year. You're kind of outpacing in some ways, even some numbers that make sense. And so would you mind just sharing a little bit about that success from your donors, the size of your donors, but also just some of the things that you did that made it successful and how you got there?
Well, and on top of the pandemic, Cory, and you're no stranger to this, but on top of the pandemic for our diocese, we also had to dodge 6 hurricanes in the midst of this fall. So launching an iGiveCatholic campaign in the midst of the true chaos was nerve-wracking. And like I mentioned, 5 years in. So our first year, we raised $25,000. And the second year is when I came on board and we really embraced the platform. And I focused in, and I would really encourage people to focus in on 2 or 3 or 5 parish priests or schools who will easily embrace the platform and make them a success. You need to have a success story for all the other people who are just like, I'm not feeling it, to want to buy in with what they got. So I found the smallest parish in 2019 who was collecting water in trash cans, and they're from the roof in their church. Timbuktu, middle of nowhere, had to raise $60,000. And the priest said, absolutely, we're not going to do it. And I said, just give us a chance. Let's do it. And they ended up raising $60,000. And then the next year, all of these other priests that were like, how did Kramer in the middle with I think they had 200 registered and active parishioners do this? I want in. And that's how we built momentum over the years, finding those small wins and those successes and showing them how easy it was done. So this year, number one, our schools just were outrageous in the way they promoted everything. They built community. They really engaged and created some challenges between schools. Another thing that what we did this year, because we knew the schools were going to be struggling, is we went out and found matching funds specifically for schools. And I think it was about $30,000, maybe 40, if I can remember correctly. And I said, the first schools who reach, the first $40,000 given to our schools will match it. And they had this competition in between themselves. And all of our schools got something. They all did. So those challenges and matched funds, to use them creatively, has been a huge success for us.
How do you share back that outrageous success from 25,000 to 460,000 to 900,000? How do you share back with the donors the experience of that type of success?
Well, it's 2 elements. Number one, each individual ministry, their school and their church parish should be sharing their individual success. So like I mentioned before, I hold their hand the whole way. I actually pull the reports for our parishes after the program, because quite frankly, they're understaffed and they have a lot on their plate. So I pull the report for them. I drive it to their secretary. Here are all your donors. Here's what they gave. Be sure to put this into your database. And I give them step-by-step, here's how you enter it. So they know exactly what to do. Same thing with schools. So they should be marketing on their end continuously of their success. And I do touch base with them throughout the year of, don't forget to share, hey, you renovated your roof, where is it, on their end. Then on the foundation and the diocesan side, each quarter I reach out to another 10 or 15 ministries that participate, and I ask for pictures and stories. And we embed those within our social media platforms and any of our digital communication from the diocesan and foundation level to share the stories that have been, like, I just got one this morning from a school. They renovated all the classrooms on their first floor, and we created some social media around with pictures. And here's the old old classroom what it looked like, and here's the new classroom, and it's because of you, all these donors, and this is, you made this happen. I didn't, the foundation didn't, you did.
Cory, when you hear this, that's all amazing. And as you conceived of this and dreamt about it as a founding board member, and you witnessed this type of impact, how do you take this story and tell others and share with others so they can have similar success?
You know, it's funny as Amy's kind of, you know, breaking that open. I think it's like anything. It's you could almost relate it to the birth of a child, right? So when a child comes, you don't know the greatness that's in store for that child, and so it's much greater than you can imagine. I think it's indicative of God's story of us, right? We don't, you know, God's greatness and His abundance are stuff that we can't even put words to oftentimes, or predict that His plan is greater than our plan, and it really is what Amy's story really brings to mind is the fact that when you put energy into it, and I think this is one of her key points that she encourages the pastors to do, to encourage the schools to do, is that when you put some energy into iGiveCatholic, it's part of the reason why we call it the great equalizer. It's not only going to be able to produce fruit and show fruit from that, but it's going to come back in returns that you don't know of, because it's tied, one, to God's grace, but you doing your work allows God's abundance to really take forth. And that's the fun part about hearing these stories. Man, there is just so many stories that she probably has that she's not able to even share with us in this call. But it shows you when people put their energy to it, and that these stories abound in the church. We just need to give the opportunity, work hard, and then together, that's the fun part, is we get to, here we are celebrating stories in Timbuktu of Amy's, but it's because of the nature of our universality of this giving that makes that happen. So it's such a fantastic something to be part of, and we hope that more people can be a part of it for her stories alone, to replicate those across the country.
I think that similarly how I share or the successes of one or two, the same thing is happening with iGiveCatholic across the country. They're seeing the successes of large archdioceses or small mission dioceses, and they're starting to go, okay, well, if it's working for them, surely it can work for us. And if I can tell any diocese is considering, just say yes. I mean, the ROI is so exponential, but the stewardship aspect that comes out of this, that, like Cory said, you just can't put a price tag on, for parishes and for schools to embrace the story and engage new people, and opens you up to brand new donors. And this sharing that story is beautiful to watch it unfold.
Amy, you mentioned that the appeal is up this year. It was up last year, and it's up again over that this year. I wonder if there's learnings you have from your experience with iGiveCatholic that have contributed to that success.
The funny thing is you asked that, and our foundation board is specifically looking at one of our goals of innovative projects. So how can we capitalize on new innovative things like iGiveCatholic for old things like our appeal? So we've been seeing a degradation in our appeal over a course of a handful of years. And last year, thank you, Jesus, that our appeal was launched before COVID happened. So I was very grateful for that. But this year we're up 350 donors compared to this time last year, and an additional $170,000. And I think the reasoning why we did that, is why it's that successful right now, is because we implemented this technology aspect to our appeal that we just weren't doing before, and then cascaded that across all of our parishes, giving them the tools and the resources. Here's the video, here's the blurb already written for you, here's the image already created for you. All you have to do, parish, is take it and implement it and put it on your social media. Take it and put it in your bulletin. Take it, and as I said before, have the pastor or the administrator in the parish lead with positivity and excitement. One roll of their eyes will shut everything down. But if they lead with positivity and excitement, they will be successful every day.
The two of you are infectious with your enthusiasm, and I appreciate you both being on with us today, and Amy for sharing all of this great information and for hopefully inspiring others to have similar types of success. Thank you both so much. It was wonderful to be here with you today, and have a good afternoon.